I 34F, and not comfortable with my husband's 36M new hobby, but don't want to discourage him. Too long did not read. My husband is obsessed with guns, and I don't like them. My question is, do I suck it up and be a supportive wife when he wants to talk about his hobby, or is it okay for me to tell him that I'm not comfortable with talking about it and I don't want him to mention it to me? Hey all. My husband and I have been together for 5 years, married since February 2020. We are very liberal, and share almost identical political moral views. But when the pandemic started, he got a little nervous and decided to buy a shotgun in March. It's November, and he now has a huge gun safe, a dozen or so guns, some with mods. He flips ammo by buying it cheap and selling it locally. He's applied for multiple permits, including being able to own a suppressor and other modded weapons. He started a gun trust, for some kind of legal reason. He 3D prints and buys stocks and other things to make the guns fire differently. He's a member at 2 different gun ranges, and spends probably 15 to 20 hours a week shooting. He's shooting competitively, and won his first trophy last weekend. Basically, he's obsessed. I love that he has a new hobby. He's a really smart guy, and will go nuts if he doesn't have something to keep his mind occupied. Money isn't an issue, we don't have kids, I'm a housewife, and we have a ton of disposable income. The problem is, I don't like guns. I don't want to have a debate with anyone. But I don't like them. They make me nervous. I went to the range with him, hoping I could get over my discomfort, and maybe even have a shared hobby. But I hated it. It's loud, it makes my hands dirty. The guns themselves scare me. I've explained this to him several times. But every time he gets a new gun, or new accessory, or finds a new YouTube video, or whatever, he wants to show me. At first I pretended to be excited and interested. But as time has gone on, I'm having trouble feigning excitement. The past couple of times, I've just said, I don't like it, I'm sorry, but he will not take a hint. I've also discussed it with him, telling him that I'm so glad he's found something he's into, but I don't want to hear about it. I am totally okay with him being involved in this hobby, but I don't want to be involved. I feel so unsupportive. I can tell he's excited and wants to tell me about it. But he has a ton of new friends in the gun circle that he can talk to about it. They actually understand what he's talking about, while I don't. I'm having trouble deciding if I just need to suck it up and be a good wife, or if he needs to stop talking to me about something that makes me feel uncomfortable. Edit. I appreciate all of the advice, y'all. I did want to say that everything he's doing is legal and safe. I find guns inherently unsafe, hence the quotes. This is just what he does when he finds a new hobby. He throws himself into it, learning everything he can. Fixing cars, rebuilding boats, photography, beer brewing, ham radio, cooking. He loves learning the technical aspects of things. It's one of the things I love about him. I am so happy he's found a new hobby. He was getting depressed from the boredom. He's a very straight and narrow kinda guy. He won't even have a single beer when we take our boat out or if he's driving. I think what someone said earlier, just tell him. I'm happy for you, I support you, but it makes me uneasy, so could you share the details with your gun club friends? It's a reasonable request. My partner can't handle my trauma nurse stories as they make him queasy, so I tell my nurse friends. I don't think this is something that will affect your relationship in the long run. Best of luck. You actually sound very reasonable here. I'm gonna guess that he'll eventually stop talking to you about it, but with a lot of things that people are excited about, they want to share that excitement. You should sit down and have a talk with him, basically saying, hey, I know you like guns, and I don't have a problem with that. But I personally don't like them, so I would appreciate if you would exclude me from any talk about them. You don't have to be involved to be supportive. You can derive happiness simply from seeing your partner happy. My partner and I are also liberal. We both grew up in rural suburbs where hunting and shooting are common hobbies. My parents are hippies, so I never really got to experience gun culture before I met my partner. He goes hunting every year. He's had me come shooting with him once before, and it was cool, but it's definitely not for me. I'm a klutz and I don't trust myself enough to get invested. I think discomfort around guns is a founded fear. I don't judge you for that, but I'm curious as to why you don't even want to hear about them. Don't you like learning things in general? Or about your partner? What's stopping you from appreciating it from afar? Why do guns have to be a political issue? As long as he's being safe, leave him alone. Ask him to lock them in a cabinet or closet when he's not using them, and you stay away from them since they make you uncomfortable. Sheesh. Why would sucking it up and being miserable make you a good wife? You're not attached at the hip or share a brain. It's completely okay to not be interested or involved in his hobby. Taking pleasure in him taking pleasure in something is a high bar and more than enough. Why are you getting down on yourself? Being a good wife is also being happy and supportive of yourself. Growing as an individual and learning to set boundaries doesn't take from you two as a couple, it only adds to it. I am certainly not against guns, but your husband is breaking the cardinal rule. Consider if what you are saying is actually interesting to the person you're talking to. It's socially kind of selfish to talk about a very niche thing that only appeals to you. I play jazz guitar, and to say I am passionate about it is an understatement. But I fully understand that most people don't listen to jazz too. People who don't listen to jazz don't want to hear me rant about it. Tell your husband you understand this is important to him but that you cannot relate to, are not interested in it, and to talk about non-gun topics with you. If he's spending that much time at the gun range and shooting in competitions, he almost definitely has made friends who he can discuss this with, rather than making you uncomfortable. Just tell him that you're happy he's happy, but you would prefer he find someone else to talk guns with. If you have a shared interest, pivot to that to remind him you have other things in common. If you don't have a shared interest, maybe look for one so you have something to discuss together that's not gun-related. Check out our liberal gun owners. Go buy a bunch of cheap knitting stuff. Show him endless videos of knitting patterns and pictures. So, if your husband hasn't been evaluated for ADHD, maybe something to look into. The rotating hobby fixation is common. You don't have to be involved in his hobby to put up with listening to him talk about it. Sometimes people just want to talk about things that interest them with the people they love, and one of the labors of love is putting up with hearing about things that don't interest you because you know it brings them joy. You may want to hop over to our liberal gun owners and post this there and ask their advice. Very reasonable crowd. Alternatively, just show him this post. You come across as very reasonable and well articulated, and nothing you have said is in any way attacking him. If you're having difficulty articulating it in person, or he isn't getting the clue verbally, seeing it written down with supportive opinions may help. Op and my wife should go out for coffee. I think they'd get along quite well. My wife is not a huge fan of my gun hobby. At first I tried to convince her to come to the range, try shooting, etc. No dice. In the end I insisted she at least know how to handle a gun safely. I don't want her shooting her foot off if I get hit by a beer truck tomorrow. Couples don't need to share all of their hobbies. Sometimes alone time is good. She tells me to go play in the garage when she's tired of dealing with me. So long as OP's husband is being safe and fiscally responsible with his hobby, that should be okay. Holy crap. I literally made this account so I could talk about two things, and one of them was my girlfriend's very different views on guns. It seems like the advice of being supportive by saying that you are really glad he has a hobby he enjoys so much, but that you really don't like guns. You tried to see if you could change that, but it hasn't worked. You love him and love that he has a new hobby, maybe even passion, but you're not the person to share it with. I think it would be good to take a gun safety class that doesn't include shooting. You can avoid the loud noises, yet learn the basics of gun safety. Might help you feel a little more comfortable. Plus, there are some scenarios when knowing the basics would be beneficial. If he left a gun outside the safe, for instance. With basic knowledge, you would know what to do and wouldn't feel afraid. Relationship-wise, I think it's good to have both shared and separate interests. I have no interest in watching The Bachelor, commenting on guys' looks, while drinking wine and eating expensive cheese. I'm happy my wife does that every week with her friends. The compromise that you could probably bring up with him is that while it makes you uncomfortable, you are willing to support his hobby, but at the same time he needs to stop heavily involving you, cut back on the video sharing and gun talk. Having a hobby is fine, but it seems like it's turning into an obsession. A collection of over a dozen guns in less than a year with mods is a lot, and he probably need to slow down. It's hard not to discourage his hobby, but you need to remind him of balancing his hobby with other things in life. Possibly other passions, physical exercise, friends, time with you, etc. Doesn't seem like it should be an issue as a hobby in general. I don't see why you couldn't tell him you don't like them or appreciate them, and that you wish he'd spare you the detail if he insists on collecting them. We men love sharing our hobbies with the women in our lives. They don't have to partake, but it sucks being passionate about something and not being able to share that part of ourselves with the women we love. For me it's motorcycles. My fiancée was in an accident a few years ago and absolutely hates them, but she's still supportive of me riding, modifying, purchasing, and collecting them. For her it's photography. I have little interest in waking up at 4 a.m. to take pictures of sunrises, but I'm always there to help her hike gear into pretty places and stand around for hours while she sets up the perfect shot. If you both can find a way to encourage and express interest in the things you each find important, you'll be stronger for it in the long run. I'm very similar in that guns just make me personally uncomfortable. My husband is a veteran and he likes guns, but we don't own any. Not sure why. I've never told my husband not to get one. I guess he just does it out of courtesy of me. But if he wanted to get one or two and go to the range or something, I wouldn't care. If you're confident in his ability to be safe and responsible, I don't see the harm in it. I would say try and compromise and maybe ask him to limit the amount of guns he has. To me, having a suppressor when guns are just a hobby is a little alarming, but I don't know much about guns. I have pretty liberal views as well, but have shot a gun at a gun range and it's pretty fun, so I understand the excitement. Maybe also ask him to limit how much he talks about it and get some sort of container or storage thing where you won't have to see the guns if you don't already have one. You just need to be completely clear about how you don't wanna hear about it, cause guys cannot take hints. Unfortunately, everything has to be spelled out for them. He 3D prints and buys stocks and other things to make the guns fire differently. As in, bump stock. As in the thing the Vegas shooter used? You might want to make sure that's not banned where you are. Communicate. Be honest with him. Tell him exactly why you don't enjoy and can't share his hobby, but you are happy for him and don't want to discourage him. It's a hobby he's passionate about. Firearms can be fascinating. If he is safe and responsible, then it's fine. He even won a competition, that's amazing. It's like when my husband tries to explain the latest plot story drama in his WWE wrestling shows. I don't care. But I smile and nod and listen anyway because it makes him happy to share and I like seeing him happy and animated. I'd let him be if he is responsible, keeps guns in a safe, unloaded, and has taken the appropriate safety training. It's not illegal. Although you may not like it, it makes him happy. Stress safety first always. I assume you're American. Not making excuses for him. Not justifying anything. But the what if factor comes into play. Assumption, but that might be driving his interest. Especially if he's political. For you, look at it as a potential skill you hope you never have to use. If that leads you to practice, then get good enough that you can hit a cutout consistently. On the upside, it should take a lot less of your time than a body-to-body martial art like karate. There are next to no guns in Oz. I really don't get the appeal, but it seems like in the US everyone should at least learn the skill. Dudes, probably, printing full auto FCG parts and she's worried about the moral point. Hey you, Jen Roberts should delete this post and purge her history before the ITF come round. I collect records 20 years or so, I spend thousands a year on them. My wife hates it. I'll get a super rare from Europe that's 1K and I'm on cloud 9. I've learned to not even bring it up with her lol. I have an Instagram just for my hobby where I talk to other record nerds like myself. It works well. Difference here is records can't kill people. He sounds like he's very responsible with his guns, so there isn't anything wrong with his hobby in my opinion. Just let him know they scare you and that you'd feel more comfortable if he just kept them to himself. Communication and compromise. I don't think you need to suck it up. Anybody who only talks about one thing is annoying, regardless of what it is. The problem is that he isn't getting the hint, which I never understand how somebody can obviously not be interested. I mean, you literally said you don't like it, and the other person doesn't notice. I think you need to tell him directly, I can tell you're excited about this, but I am not interested or comfortable with it. You have friends you can show these things to, please talk to them and leave me out of it. If he doesn't get it after saying something like that, then I don't think he'll ever get it. And that's a bigger issue. I wouldn't even live with someone who owned a gun, so I guess good for you for still trying to support him. You could always get a BB gun and try it out. They're not as loud and it's pretty fun hitting targets knowing you can't accidentally kill someone lol, and if you decide it's not for you then at least you tried. Oh, your title made me think it was something like keeping hitchhikers in the basement. Is he selling the ammo legally? Is he selling it to just anyone? Personally, I'd want him to at least do background checks before final sale. Also, is his hobby eating into quality time with you? People here will tell you that your dislike of guns is fine and that you should set a boundary with him that eliminates any discussion about guns. Personally, I think this is irresponsible if you don't have a competency with guns. Your life is objectively less safe than it would be if you could load, aim, and fire one of the guns in your home. I think your husband loves you and he loves you being alive. Instead of viewing this as him trying to share his hobby, I view it as him trying to get you interested in protecting your life. This is a good thing. If you did have a competency with firearms then I would condone the frustration with him chatting about it all the time. First you make him that nasty looking cake and now you want him to drop his hobbies. He should drop you instead. Killing machines aren't a hobby. Suck it up. The reason you don't speak German and have the right to call Trump a piece of shit is 100% because guns exist. They are loud and make my hands dirty. So are the dictators forcing child labor and female mutilation around the world. You have no idea what an insulated little bubble you live in. I cannot stress this enough. Suck it the fuck up. Then try being thankful for that stress-free life you live. A partnership consists of two people getting together to share happiness. Your dislikes have nothing to do with your partner. Your life should not infringe on your partner's happiness. Your thoughts are your own. If you do not like your partner's hobbies, end the relationship. Imagine your partner feeling the same way about something you do.